So part of using these drawing techniques is having proper stance while you're at an easel. That's why I'm using myself here as a model, as humiliating as that might be. But here's what I'm trying to show you, that you do need to stand farther back than you think. You see that straight arm? That's deliberate. You're going to need to lock your arm when you're doing a technique like angular transfer. Also when you're doing sighting, which is basically measuring with a pencil. So you stand far back. It's about 2.5 to 3 feet away from your canvas or away from your drawing surface that you're working on. And you do have to work upright. Your work also has to be upright too. So angular transfer is a technique that works both with a photograph, so a photo reference, but it also works in real time when you're observing from life. So what it is you have to hold up your pencil, lock your arm so your arm is fully extended. You close one eye, and it sounds weird, but you have to close one eye because we have two eyes and it gets confusing. Close one eye and you lock your arm at that angle, and then you transfer that angle to your paper. Your paper has to be vertical or mostly vertical for this to work. So you take an angle from real life or from your photo reference and you transfer it. You just move your arm over, keep your arm locked at that angle. So for this demonstration, I am using charcoal. You can use any kind of drawing material, so a pencil works really well with this technique. So does a paintbrush with a little bit of paint on it. And you can see I'm holding up my angle or my tool to that angle, locking my arm at that angle and transferring it to the paper. It's really important that you keep a straight arm when you do this. And why is this important? It's because you don't necessarily have to measure things out and find the linear perspective if you understand how to do angular transfer. So the bottom line is it helps you to draw a little bit more quickly, and it also helps you to be a little bit more accurate when you're doing a drawing, especially if it's something that's man-made and it has angles in it. And angles can be vertical, they can be horizontal, they can be at a diagonal. So, linear perspective is tricky. It has a single vanishing point, usually, where all things tend to converge. There's multiple vanishing points that are possible, of course, but it's good to keep that in your head. But if you can do this, you can avoid having to use a ruler. You can see I'm drawing pretty quickly here. It's sped up, but just a little bit. So it helps with accuracy and speed. For this demo, I'm doing a quick drawing. So this is not meant to be a finished work. It's something that I knocked out within like 10 to 15 minutes. It's just to show you that technique of grabbing an angle and locking your arm and moving that angle over to your paper or canvas if you were working on canvas. So here's what's happening with your face. You have to close one eye when you're doing this technique. So you look for the angle, close one eye, hold your arm at that angle, and then transfer it. So I did need to show you that you do have to close one of your eyes as you're drawing. My daughter said I was looking too serious while I was drawing. Maybe. I'm probably concentrating really hard. So you can see I'm holding up my charcoal stick. You will be doing this with pencil, by the way, because you are going to practice. You hold it up, and you can see me transferring it. You can see me closing one eye. And that is very normal. Most artists will close an eye if they're grabbing an angle. They'll also do it for the next technique we're going to learn, which is called sighting. So artists do weird things all the time. I purposefully get my eyes out of focus, so I squint when I work, when I'm judging values or looking at shapes. So there are weird things you do with your face in order to get a little bit more accurate with your drawing skills. Okay, so here's how you can apply it to observational drawing, which is basically drawing in plein air. So you can see this is what my arm's doing. I'm looking at the angle, closing one eye, and transferring the angle over. Again, I'm not using a ruler, I'm freehanding it. And you can see me holding that tool, the vine charcoal, far back. The reason I'm using vine charcoal, by the way, is so that it shows up on the video feed. When I use pencil, it's hard to see. my lines because I tend to draw kind of light. The vine charcoal is nice and dark, so it shows up. Okay, so I'm just going to speed this up so you don't have to watch me draw for the next like 14 minutes. But you can see what I'm doing. You can see my arm stays locked when I'm doing it. I keep repeating myself, but it's so that you understand the methodology behind it. And again, no rulers at all. Just dragging my tool. And I double check a lot of my angles. So I'll do it once and then you'll see me try it again just to make sure it was correct. The nice thing about working in here is we're in a man-made space, so it's guaranteed that you're going to have some kind of linear perspective because we're basically in a cube, because that's what a room is. It's a cube. And there are lines on the ceiling and they all converge at a single vanishing point. So rather than drawing that vanishing point and finding the point at which they converge, I can use angular transfer. But like I said, it does really help to have an understanding of perspective and where those lines converge. It does help to have that in the back of your head while you're working. I did post up there on the screen an image of what I'm looking at. It's to the right there. I just inserted that within the film, within the picture frame. That's what I'm looking at as I'm drawing. So you can see the monitors that are on the desk. You can see the door. As I'm drawing too, I'm also looking at how objects relate. It's kind of like putting together a puzzle piece, and I'm looking at where does that top of that object hit another object, like the trash can. Where does that trash can hit if I were to draw a horizontal line from the top of the trash can to the door? Would it hit below the knob or above? So those are the things that I ask myself to make sure I have everything correct in relationship to one another. I use something called plumb lines all the time, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. Plumb lines technically are vertical lines, but I use these horizontal lines to gauge where things hit. So next up is your turn. You're going to look to a corner of the classroom and you're going to be drawing it. So you're going to be looking from life at that corner and transitioning that onto your page. I'd like you to try and use angular transfer, and well, you should stand up for it. It's easier if you stand up. If you're at a table, you'll probably have to sit and do it, but you can still do it that way. Watch that you don't hit the person next to you. This is to be done in a sketchbook.